to those in power is the same complaint, is the same agony. If you speak to those of us who are on the other side of power, it's the same thing. So I hope I can be able to offer my own suggestions. But let me start by saying something we all know. And this is what I call the dominance of the two Wests. I think we're all familiar that the current information order, the information we receive, even the culture that attends to this is dominated by the West. When we say the West, we normally mean Western Europe versus stroke America. I mean, they go as the West. We consume most of our media products from there. You know, I was growing up, I knew people who religiously, perhaps as religious as their prayers, who listen to BBC at the 2:45, who move to DOA, you know, who move to Joshua Valley, whatever. This is what they do. We also through films, through all sorts of products, you know, our society is seriously embedded by these practices in many ways, but they are part of us. We consume them perhaps because something in the world, to the BBC, to the VOA and other Western products. We are lucky that now Al Jazeera has come in to disrupt this order. In the last years or so, Al Jazeera has disrupted this international news order and given us a different perspective of what is happening. In the world, you go to Al Jazeera, you see what is happening in Gaza, you see what is happening in other parts. But what is that conference discussing? The conflict in Ukraine, not the conflict in Gaza. The conflict in Gaza seems to be not forgotten, but it seems to be something that the Muslim world, the Arabs themselves, are incapable of dealing with. Look at the conflict in Sudan. Again, it's called the forgotten conflict because it's been going on. 40 million people displaced, thousands killed. But yet, you know, there is no urgency about it because it's not on top of the Western media. It's not something that they emphasize or they prioritize. It's something that you say, okay, some people have been killed, and then it goes on. So I think this issue of the dominance of the Western media has been something with us, and it has impacted on our worldview. How do we see the world? And it's impacted on how we can, on how we can deal with the day-to-day problems that have become international as well as local. Now, the other West, which is of more direct relevance to us, is of course what I will call the West within Nigeria. Now, again, for those of us who are old enough, we know that for a long time, we call it the Lagos Ibadan press. It has dominated. It has dominated the information dissemination in the country. People read the offerings from these products. People access most of their information from television, which is also originating there. And so you have a situation where this dominance is replicated locally. You have the Western dominance, and then you have the local dominance here, which is also Western in its own way. And you find a situation where, for a long time, you know, it is Lagos Ibadan. Now we're able to break that a little bit. You have media springing up in the north. in Abuja, particularly, some of it in Kano and Kaduna. But that dominance is still there. And it shows in many ways. And the impact on our own way of life is obvious. For example, when we started the Daily Trust a couple of years back, we didn't even have a press. We are printing other presses. And we discovered that in Nigeria, newspapers do not appear on Christmas Day. On Christmas, there didn't used to be newspapers in Nigeria. If you go on 25th December, the workers will not go to work, so they are not there to produce a newspaper. So when we started our daily newspaper, we said, so we produce a paper, we are going to print this up, but papers are not produced. We say, why? We produce papers on our Eid. Why should we stop producing newspapers on Christmas? Now suddenly everybody is producing newspapers on Christmas Day because we went ahead and started producing on Christmas. We said, because it's against our culture, we will not do alcohol advertising. And we don't. And the big advertising companies say, look, if you say so, then we'll deny you the other adverts that you want. Because, we don't see anything wrong with alcohol. Even today we hear this the debate when it comes to this VAT. A lot of people are saying, well, you want VAT, but there is VAT on alcohol. And you Muslims in the north, you still want this money. If you don't want alcohol, why do you collect the money? So you have to take a stand for what is your own way of life. So we said, no, sorry, no alcohol, no tobacco. We don't want to do it. And gradually, it has become acceptable. So this is the way in which even the media products themselves are determined by the culture of those who produce them. And we're at the receiving end of that culture. There are many ways I can give you examples, even very recent ones. When the killings happened in Uromi, 25 or so, these are simple northerners who go there after the rainy season. You will wonder, to be honest, people like us here, why will you want to go to the south, or Takor or wherever, with 10 guns and say you are going to be hunters? But this is a conversation we should have among ourselves. Why? In the way this country is, even to go to the south as a laborer is risky. But you go there with 10 guns and say you are going to be hunters. And they do it every year. Now, when the killings happened, because of course the people in Oromi, I mean the travelers, they had their registration, they had certificate to show that they're entitled to carry these guns. They were in a group with the leadership when they are stopped by a vigilante. But what happened? Nobody listened to them. Because there is this ethnic profiling that says the Muslims, they are the violent ones. They are the kidnappers. Now this is made worse by the fact that here are these Muslims, able-bodied, with arms, or whatever type of arms they are. And these killings happened. As they keep happening, we keep doing stories about poor northerners in a trailer being arrested by Ametoku in the southwest, or by some vigilante group. They committed no crime. They are just northerners, maybe in a group, and the sense is that these people are a threat. So either they are killed, or if they are lucky, they are arrested, and later on pressure is put for them to be released. Now, in the case of the Uromi, the media completely blanketed the story. You wouldn't know it has happened. You know, you wouldn't know it has happened. And we have to now, raise the matter. We have to say, look, these people were killed. What happened? And it is because of the media coverage we gave that even the governor had to come to Kano and the matter become a national issue. And hopefully, these poor people will receive justice. So you keep seeing this dichotomy. If something happens in the plateau, and it's happening in the plateau, which is next door to us, you find that automatically it is assumed that there is, in fact, the governor called it genocide. He raised the scale. He said it's genocide. Now, how can a minority have the strength and the numbers to engage in genocide? But nobody sees that logic. So automatically it is assumed that these violent Muslims are trying to wipe out the indigenous majority community in the plateau. So somebody has to raise the question. Somebody has to raise the question. Are Fulanis just mindlessly just jumping in the night and killing people? When Fulanis in their isolation, because this is what happens, they are attacked in isolation. I'm sure there are a lot of people here who know this, who know about this. The odd young Fulani kid who is herding will be killed. The cows will be rustled. It will happen, 2, 3, and then when these Fulanis find that there is no justice, in fact, there is no acknowledgement it is happening, somehow they organize themselves and take revenge as they see it. And then suddenly we all come alive nationally, government, everybody, and say, look, there is genocide, there is this attack. It's happening in Benue. How many Fulanis are there vis-a-vis the Tiv and other ethnic groups? How is it that it is these small groups who move around that are the aggressors? It defies logic. But I think the media is not about logic. The media is about, let me take my own side. So it depends on who is telling the story. Often it depends on the audience that is the story. So what I'm saying is all well known to you. That's why I say it's an easy topic to discuss. What is more difficult is what do we do about this? How do we confront this challenge? Yes, there are a few newspapers like the one I work for, now increasingly more radio stations, that are raising the issues that concern us. But I think, as you probably admit, this is not enough. Even if you set up publishing companies in Nigeria today, where does the money from advertising come from? You find that most of the companies, most of the banks, most of the big NGOs, international ones, are probably based in Lagos. And even if they are not based in Lagos, they use the big advertising agencies that are in Lagos. Those are the ones that will decide which media should get what. And so we're at very serious disadvantage. Even if you set up a newspaper, which many have done, and I think they're struggling to keep it there, you find that advertising, sometimes even circulation, because circulation in the north is a big challenge. How do you move copies? Now, I'm talking about the old media. I'm mindful of the new media, and I'm coming to that. But even the traditional media, which has its own influence, it has its own prestige. Because a lot of people say to me, oh, newspapers now are dying, how are you surviving? I say, we're doing very well, thank you very much. The thing is about adapting. It's not, you just don't stay there and allow, because the social media, nobody buys newspapers. It's true. People don't buy newspapers. Circulation in all Nigerian newspapers now, every day. And I can tell you this because I'm in the Newspaper Proprietors Association. It's not up to 100,000 in a country of 200 million. So most of you here don't read newspapers. I don't see a copy of a newspaper here. Maybe there's one or two here. And these are the elites. People don't read newspapers. So how are newspapers to survive? Especially in the north where we produce in Abuja, from Abuja to Bauchi, 7 hours. So you have to bring it to Bauchi for somebody to buy. So yes, the old model is in a problem. It is dying, but it's still very influential. The reason being, that is where still the advertising is. I will discuss the issue of the new media because I think it's the easier one for us, the disadvantaged groups like us, Muslims, to get into, because the entry barrier is very low. All you need is a computer, and you can be a publisher. You can do things online that a big company can do. But since we are still influenced, since the traditional media is still very important. And when I talk of traditional media, I'm talking of newspapers, I'm talking of television, I'm talking of even radio. These are still important. Their audience is shrinking as everybody accesses news on his mobile. But the money is still there. The money is still there. I'm telling you, if there are aspiring publishers here, don't think when you rush into doing online newspaper there is money there. The money is still in the old media, And so when we try to engage in that space, we face the challenges of advertising. We face the challenges of distribution, because this is a wide northern Nigeria where most Muslims are. It's a wide territory. If you are a publisher in Lagos, or you have your TV in Lagos, you find that maybe 50% of your audience is in Lagos. Just as they say 70% or 70 out of every 100 naira spent in Nigeria is spent in Lagos. So that's where the money is. And you cannot do media if you don't get the business model right. I know a lot of our brothers and colleagues who out of patriotism want to go into the media. They do it for a year or 2 or 3, and then they have to rest. All of us were, I know even us, we are now 27 years old. People have been waiting for the day that we are going to stop. I know people say, oh, look, how long are these people going to be around? Only Allah knows. We are still here 27 years later. But I recognize the difficulty and the need to fill this gap. In fact, there's a very interesting Muslim publication. I don't know if you know about it. Maybe the sisters. It's called Sister to Sister. Very worthwhile publication. I know because my wife is one of the people doing it. They are capable journalists. And when they started, it's devoted to women, and we need it. We need to tell our Muslim sisters to go against the trend which you see in the media, and which you see very strongly in Arewa 24 in particular, which is based in Kano. So I'm wondering what the Kano people are doing about this. But anyway, so this Sister to Sister, very good Muslim publication, started by Muslim women who want to reach their sisters. I was trying to advise them, but sometimes it's not easy to advise your wife. It's easier to do it with more formal relationship. I said, look, you guys, you are doing a good job. The content is great, but your business model is wrong. You will not sustain this They will now, when they print it, and we help them, we help them for a while. When they print it, they will call some ustaz in Kasina and send it to him. He's not there, he's not a staff, he's just a colleague, somebody who is sympathetic. They will send him the paper. When he finishes selling, he will send them the money. You can imagine what happens after some time. It's not that maybe the money will be, but if there's little money. So gradually, that is not enough to continue the publication. And this is our story. This is a story of northern Nigeria. We start things, we can't sustain them. And I think partly is because we think, look, we don't have to use the secular business models. Maybe we think there is but business is business. If you don't follow its logic, then you can do something else. If you are able to get money, that you can do this fi sabilillah, that's great. But if you want to sustain, you have to find a way to make sure you get your circulation, you get your money back, and then you get your advertising. And while the advertisers are very reluctant, because they control the money, and they think they can control the content. They will tell you what sometimes they say, look, you people are just a regional newspaper. We are looking for national newspapers. We say, well, how do you decide a national newspaper? So gradually they saw that our audience in our own case was getting strong, and they could not ignore us after some time. But it takes a long time. It's a big struggle to get to the point where you can now stand on your own. You have your own audience, and you can adapt to changes that come with time. And at this point, let me come to the challenge of the new media. What I've been saying mostly applies to the traditional media, which I know better, I must confess. I'm sure there are people here who know the new media better than me, because I'm old media. When I started in Kano, our company Triumph, there were no computers. We were not working with computers. It's a teleprinter, which will take the news, and then I come as editor. At one point, I will look at it and say, okay, pick this. Only maybe a handful of people know how to operate computers. In the computer room, we take you to them. So that's how I grew up as a journalist. But now, here we are in the new world of the new media. Now, in a sense, this is a little bit easier, like I said, for Muslims, especially the younger Muslims. And I can see they are rising up to the challenge. There are many online publications, many. We may not know about them because they are still small, they have not scaled up. As I said, there is no money there. They are mostly distributing it free. So it takes maybe a certain time, or I don't know, for them to have the kind of audience, the thousands, hundreds of thousands, that they can go to an advertiser and say, look, if you are trying to reach Kano, look at my numbers. Or if you are trying to reach Muslim women with fashion, or with whatever women prefer to buy, these are my numbers. I don't think we have reached that stage. But the good thing is that it's easier to get in. It's easier to get in. And many young people are doing it. And they are doing it in a way that, of course, they are projecting our culture. They are projecting the views of the Muslim community. And I think this is something we should encourage, because at least we have a way to, whoever wants to find out what we're all about, there are mediums, there are platforms where those people can go to. So you find that if you follow the social media, you find what I call the internet warriors. On both sides, the warriors, they are fighting on the internet. These ones will abuse Muslims, or abuse the North, And it goes back and forth. And we have young people who I don't think it's very useful, but it's good we have them. It's good we have people who reply when you say, "Oh, why do you want that?" If you reject alcohol, somebody will now answer and say, "These are young people who are doing it." So you see it that at least it allows our voices to be heard there. So just as the traditional media will be able to find a way, especially with the advent of the Daily Trust, to disrupt this Lagos Ibadan. Even them now, they don't call it Lagos Ibadan anymore. You know, in fact, the media in Ibadan has more or less died. So it's now more like Abuja, Lagos. In the same way, in the new media, we have to find a way, in spite of the challenges, to disrupt this monologue or mono voice that is coming only from one part of Nigeria. Of course, they have the advantage of education, they have the advantage of wealth, even internet broadband. These are things that nobody may pay attention to. Certainly, it's not the kind of things our government are yet paying attention. So they are important. We can now see how the cost of data is actually making it more difficult for people to engage even the social media. It used to be maybe fairly easier, but the data is now becoming more and more expensive. So you have to think, how much of the social media can you afford to do? And the other thing we found from our own experience is that, people are more interested in entertainment. Serious news is not really for everybody. Maybe only serious people. A lot of people are there. They want to all the scandals around what is happening and all that. It's entertainment. We live very difficult lives, so people want to give themselves some entertainment. So again, when you see that, how much does it cost you, the data and all that. So you find people are increasingly not even aware of what is going on around them. Some of the challenges that I mentioned, especially that happen to people who travel around the country. Now, so I think when it comes to the main issue, which is not just to talk about the challenges, which everybody knows, to be honest. Maybe you may not know in detail because you are not involved with it like some of us. But you do know everything I said about this dichotomy between the Western media and we, the rest of the world, especially the Islamic world, and then the dichotomy between us in Nigeria, between the Western media again, the West in its own term, and we in this part of the world. Now, what are we to do? What are we to do? I did say that the new media is one area where we can help ourselves, because it's easier to do. It doesn't take so much money. There are times in the past where people say, look, we need to set up a newspaper. And by the time they give you the budget, it becomes something else. It's very hard. It's very hard. But in the internet now, on the social media, you don't need a printing press. You don't need to import newsprint. You don't need vehicles to transport. All you need is your computer and some bright young people. The problem is for them to figure out how do you build the audience. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, fine. So how do you build this audience? All of the online media encourage our young people to do it and see how that works. because we don't know. Everybody is chattering about online media, digital. So we are thinking that all newspapers are going to die. Maybe everybody will be online. Fine. In fact, I can tell you that we take the challenge so seriously that we ourselves were building a digital newsroom. So very soon, all of us who are the old media will disappear. So it's not that the media will stop. It's just you have to adapt. And that's what business does for you. You have the means to adapt. If you don't adapt, you die. So I'm not sure the existential threat that today you may find fewer people reading newspapers, but the digital will become more and more important. And if it starts to make money, then that's an area where we can say that we have grown very well. So set up more outlets, even though there are challenges. Now, it may look difficult, but I think this is something we should try. And I see it being tried on the social media. Our ulama now have gone digital, isn't it? They are, the digital ulama, they're all over the place. I see them on videos. Most preaching is happening there. And I think that's a very good thing. The other thing is that people like Dambello, who a lot of people follow, are using the social media creatively. And I think this is something that even the whole country has taken notice. You find that even where he does it in Hausa, but even where Hausa is not the main language, people follow him, translate it, because the content is interesting. And I think this is a way to raise awareness, to also answer the challenge. Finally, let me say that even if we build more new media outlets and all that, I think there are two challenges that I see. And I see that among us Muslims, we seem not to like debate. This is a controversial subject I'm raising. We seem to want to, we seem to be uncomfortable with debate, with contestation, different viewpoints. I remember one of my first engagement with the Ummah. This is during the Sharia debate. I believe it's fully 20 years ago. And the leaders of the ulama, now the debate on the Sharia, for the older ones of us who remember, kind of pitted Muslims, there were people who were for it. I don't want to mention names. Some of them are not alive now, but those who know, they know. So, and this debate seems to divide Muslims. It's like we are washing our dirty linen in public. But those of us who are in the media, who maybe we have a liberal, shall we say, attitude, well, the media is a platform. It's not we, it is you, and we cannot choose. We cannot say, "Oh, I like this guy, or he's my friend. Let's give him this thing." We allow everybody to debate, and hopefully, out of that debate and discussion, something comes out. But in those days, there are people who felt, look, we're having something good, Sharia has come, this and that. Anybody who comes and say, look, is this Sharia, what is happening here? Is this right? Is this wrong? It's like you become enemy of our own this thing. So I see that as one of the things that will present a challenge to us, because the media is an open platform. In fact, it's like a town hall. People come and say their mind, and out of that, the best may come out. And when you look at it, when you look at the passion about the Sharia debate, where are we now? Where are we with it? I don't know. You know better than me. Where is Zamfara? Zamfara, where all this thing started? Where are the leaders? So I'm just raising this to show you from my vantage point the challenges we face if as Muslims, we want to raise this in the media and debate about it. The second one is that there seems to me to be too few voices raised against justice and equity in our community. We seem to accept, what is going on around us. We seem to accept it. I don't know if I'm wrong, but that's why I say too few voices. There are some. But a Muslim Ummah should be the one leading the challenge to bad governance. Why is it? Maybe we do it quietly, and all that, in our sitting rooms, and where maybe in other forums. But I don't see it. I don't see us raising the let's say the Islamic model of leadership, where people don't go there. You see them, they are the governor and they are this and that. We don't do it. We follow this thing, and we don't seem to challenge and say, look, Islam has its own model of leadership, and it is given to those who don't want it actually, not to those who jump on us and demand it or use their own capacity in some form. Ko some people baki, ko some people kudi, ko wani abu to get it, and I don't see that being raised. I don't see that. I don't see us challenging it, and that is why, year in year out, we seem to have been having conferences upon conferences. Challenge your Muslim. Indeed, I will tell you my own experience. Some people here, like I saw Dr. Tilde, will recall, we had a Wharf Road Mosque Forum in Kaduna. And at that time, I was the secretary of the planning of these conferences. We did it on Sharia, with Al-Majri, on Hajj, on Zakat. And we did so many in Arewa House. In fact, I used to say, if the walls of Arewa House have a voice, they will say, Kai, why are you repeating the same thing every year? I think our challenge is to do it. Thank you very much. Thank you.